This is not a call out to anyone specific, but some of y'all take this music gadget stuff way too seriously. People in my first video on the Akai Force are getting all up in arms about the Akai Force versus the MPCs, and they're both by the same company. They're both good. And for a while, I adhered to the idea that they're basically the same thing. You know, they have all the same sampling capabilities, all the same synth plugins, all the same effects, pretty much the same UI. They're basically the same devices. And for basic bare bones beat making, I still stand by that. But as reluctant as I was to jump aboard the hype train, I now totally understand why people were hyping the Force to me so much. Once you get into the live performance / putting together a full song capabilities, plus some of the other workflow stuff that is kind of hardware specific to the Force, it's pretty damn impressive. So that's what I want to walk you through today. All right, so it's taken quite a bit of prep to get to this point. In addition to actually, making the music, I had to set up all my clips and scenes to work the way I wanted to, and then kind of rehearse the jam that you're going to see. And even then, this is very much meant to play into my favorite, the hybrid workflow. So we've got, among other things, an ARP, some drums, 2 bass tracks. You'll notice I've got a bunch of other tracks scattered around here. I just went ham layering. Now, that's going to be a bit inconvenient for triggering stuff during a live jam, but there are a couple things I've done. First of all, anything that I want to trigger not as a part of a scene, I've made sure is accessible without moving these navigation buttons at all. And anything else, I've just copied around to place into scenes. So for instance, I've launched all of these different clips as a part of this one scene. This is kind of our main breakdown scene. And then I've also got a drop scene, which I'll play in a second. We've also got a few other scattered bits. Let me just stop all these, which, by the way, this also really comes in clutch. This is a really nice quality of life thing that was clearly thought of in advance, because if I select a bunch of clips, those stay selected even if I hit stop, so I can just disable all of them with stop all. I can launch all of these with the launch button. That is a bit confusing at first, but once that sinks in, suddenly you realize it's genius. So I've got a couple other random things, like this little octave up version of this that I'm going to trigger just as a one-off. And I've also been able to make this one melody element originally on this track with one of the key groups that I sell in my $5 key group pack, available for the Akai Force and standalone MPCs, link in the description. This clip can just be copied to any other track. So I've got like a few different layers that were super easy to set up. There's also stuff like this 1-bar little ride loop, and I wanted to make up a build part with the ride still going. So all I had to do is duplicate this clip. You can also just hold down copy and just like drop this anywhere. I'm going to delete that for now. I copied this ride clip into here and then use shift and then double. And I just mashed that a few times until it went up to 8 bars, recorded in my snare. We're good to go. Now, the other major bit of prep, besides setting all of these clips up in a way that makes sense for the structure that I want and kind of figuring out the structure on the fly, the other big bit of preparation is getting these macro knobs. And I can take this a lot farther than I did, but this was just proof of concept and kind of the bare minimum. This is really cool. This is getting into some machine territory, and I adore this. So check this out. Let me stop all of this stuff and just bring up this ARP. This is a macro knob tied to the cutoff of hype synth. And that's not all. This macro right here, you may notice, if you can even read that, it just says macro, 0%, generically. That's because this is mapped to multiple things simultaneously, and I'll show you how I did that in a second, but watch. I messed that up a little bit, but hopefully you get the idea. It's ending the pitch of that drum track up. It's high pass filtering it further and further up, and it's actually shortening the sample via bringing the sustain down. And all of that is controlled via the project-based knobs. So project 2 is the stuff I've got selected here. And so if I hit edit and then knobs, I can actually customize these. So in this case, I've just gone and you hit this plus button to bring up new parameters. You have access to pretty much everything in this whole damn machine. I've just set this to the cutoff of the hype synth for the pluck. For this second knob though, I've got all 3 of these parameters all contained within this knob. And you can even set the range of the knob. And so I was able to dial in the pitch shifting and the filter cutoff and all that kind of stuff to be in a range that sounded good. So I could turn it all the way to 100% and it would still sound fine. That way I'm not trying to like fine tune it by ear and maybe mess it up. I know that if I just go from 0% to 100% over the course of that entire build, it'll sound the way I want it to. That's very nice. So if you're willing to do a bit of prep, the macro functionality that I just showed you combined with the ability to launch both clips and scenes and make use of clip stop and stuff like that, all of that comes together to make for a really seamless jamming experience. One that once I took the time to sit down and really dig into it, clicked surprisingly fast. I went from just not really getting it, finding it really overwhelming to going, oh, this is actually really elegant in the way it's set up very fast. That's pretty impressive. It brings together all the stuff I love about the MPCs, all of the sound and sampling engines, brings it together with a lot of the stuff I love about, say, the Novation circuits, which are very clip-based, very flexible live jamming solutions. You can do some live jamming on the MPCs, do not get me wrong here, but this is definitely more conducive to it, and I don't really see Akai cross-pollinating these features to the MPCs. Some people are going to get pretty understandably upset about Akai not giving crossover functionality between the Force and the MPCs. I absolutely understand that. It might seem like they're intentionally nerfing both devices in different ways, and that can seem scummy, and I totally 100% understand it, and to some respect, I'm like kind of there with you. But also, the hardware of both devices are very much built with certain workflows in mind. Sometimes I like the simplicity of the MPC's song mode, and sometimes I like how complex this can get with actually surprisingly simple clip launching. And we're still not done. All of this stuff comes together in the song mode, which can seem a bit intimidating at first, but I've actually come to like it. So if I hold down menu, I can go to the arrange view. And here's how we're going to do this. First of all, I'm going to make sure time correct is turned off. It is. I'm going to turn off MIDI rec erase as well. So if I want to punch in anything, it doesn't erase the stuff that's already there. I've made sure this length is set to be, well, nice and long. And I'm going to hold down record and hit to arrangement. And once I start a clip, we're going. We're going to be launching these clips in real time, just doing a jam, and it'll record the launching of those clips into the arranger. In fact, that's not quite accurate. It's going to record the clips themselves into the arranger. So it's all going to be like MIDI data and that kind of stuff that then we can edit. So maybe you could add a couple extra little kicks or snares or fills here and there, that kind of thing. I should note, you can also do that on the standalone MPCs. Once you've put a bunch of sequences into song mode, you can then convert it into one giant sequence, and then it'll function fairly similarly, but it feels a lot more built from the ground up on the Force for this workflow. And here's what this is going to allow me to do. And we're going to just do this live in a second. This allows me the workflow that I really am after with a hardware-software hybrid approach. I can do a live jam completely untethered from a computer. It feels very hands-on and immediate. It makes for a good video because I'm like doing stuff, I'm twisting knobs, I'm launching clips. I can do that live jam while recording it all into the arranger. Then I can export those individual tracks. I don't even have to record the individual tracks. I can just export them. Maybe I've even done some other edits between doing the jam and exporting the tracks. I can bring those tracks into my DAW, make a bunch more edits, do a bunch more processing and mixing, and then I've got my full song. It gives me, in my opinion, the best of both worlds, and that was the workflow I really wanted out of this thing, and it turns out that it's actually freaking perfect for it. So we're going to actually do this, and one other thing I want to make sure I draw your attention to, I'm going to be also recording automation of these two macro knobs like I showed you earlier. So make sure to turn on write for your automation. It was on read before, we're turning it on to write. So I should also be careful not to like tweak any volumes or anything that I don't want to automate on the fly, although we can delete that later, but it'll be annoying. So now that I've made sure that write automation is turned on, I've hit stop all to make sure nothing is going when I actually hit record, and I've made sure that timing correct is off because some of this stuff is a little unquantized, and if you don't turn that off, it'll quantize stuff going in, which we don't want. The quantization of launching clips is a separate thing, and that is on. Let's actually just do a live jam. Wish me luck. All right, so the version that you just heard is the version that I've processed in post. I've done some mixing, I've done some extra automation, especially in that little transition between the two drops. I've added some stuff, I've glitched the basses up a bunch. If you want to see what went into that, and also for that matter, if you want to see me come up with this main song idea completely from scratch, check out the video that also released today on my second channel, Beat Goblin. I'll link it at the end of this one. But there are a few things to note about that. First of all, that took quite a few takes to get right because I kind of was a little out of practice with a bunch of these different ideas. But once I got there, once I really got some momentum, I was able to just carry through in one nice, clean, continuous take. Also, I have had some issues with the automation. Like this cutoff knob seemed to want to set itself back a few times. Like I would open the cutoff a lot and then it would just kind of close the cutoff again for no reason. It was kind of weird and really annoying. So I'm not sure if there's a way around that or if I'm doing something wrong. You know, I'm still learning this thing. Like I've got enough to very confidently show you some stuff, but I'm still learning it. That's a bit annoying. However, that is a bit of a teachable moment as well, because now I can show you some other useful stuff. So if I click back to arrange, that'll take me to the arranger view. So now everything I edit will be the arranger version of everything. I select this plugin. I go to the grid for it. I can then open this up, scroll to my track cutoff, and I can now edit this automation. And like, look at these weird little jumps. I did not do this. It decided to do it for me, and I do not appreciate it. Also, let me actually hold down knobs and change them to screen. Now I can do horizontal scrolling and zooming with these, which is a really nice, clean layout. And it actually, like, you know, tells me what it is, so I can twiddle knobs with impunity and not worry that I'm messing stuff up. So now I can start to play through my arrangement and pull up this pencil icon right here. And I can start to refine my automation anywhere where it's janky. Once again, it's a big ol' steaming pile of dookie that it's kind of broken in the first place, but at least I've got the capability to fairly easily edit it. That'll do. It's close enough. So yeah, we notice we have this jump down. And in fact, I might actually want to have this keep moving and grooving a little bit. So now it dives down. to go into this next section. So it's wide open, super hype. And so then it stays fairly consistent. It does its weird little jump down again, which I didn't want, but then I edit it like the absolute freaking master of automation that I am, and we go from there. And I'm going to do some transition stuff to get this drop to work a little better, including a drum fill with real drums, because it's a VST instrument that sounds a bit more realistic than anything that's going to be packed into here. That's going to be the freaking move. Also, we're going to do stuff like this. When we get into our second drop, I think that'd be fun. But you've already heard this. You'll also notice that I could just draw in notes. I'm not going to do it for this track, but I'm going to add a few extra kicks and snares in a few very strategic places, especially during the drops. I'm going to do that off camera, export these tracks, and then do a bunch of mixing for the final version that you've already heard. If you'd like to see me make that beat from scratch and also take it even further in the DAW, you can click or tap up over here for this video on my second channel. And if you'd like to see more Akai Force and MPC for EDM stuff, you can click or tap over here somewhere. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll be back with a new video in a little bit.